January 3, 1889, Turin, Italy. Friedrich Nietzsche walks out of his apartment and sees a horse being whipped by its owner. He runs to the horse, throws his arms around its neck, and collapses. He never fully recovers. For the next 11 years, Nietzsche barely spoke. He sat in silence, cared for by his mother and sister. The man who had written some of the most explosive philosophy in history could no longer write a sentence. But before the collapse, before the horse and the silence, Nietzsche had set fire to everything. He had declared God dead. He had dismantled morality, and he had asked a question that no philosopher had dared to ask before. Friedrich Nietzsche was born in 1844 in what is now Germany. His father was a Lutheran pastor who died when Nietzsche was 5. He grew up surrounded by women, his mother, his sister, his grandmother, his aunts. He was brilliant. So brilliant that at 24, before he even finished his doctorate, he was appointed professor of classical philology at the University of Basel. He served briefly in the Prussian army but was discharged after a riding accident. He was never physically strong. Terrible eyesight, migraines that could last for days, vomiting, near blindness. He wrote most of his philosophy in 10 to 15-minute bursts between bouts of pain. And then there was the mustache, the enormous, magnificent, impossible mustache. It deserves mention. But behind it was a mind that would change Western thought forever. This is mindscape philosophy. We take the ideas that actually change lives and show you why they matter. Today, the man who declared God dead and asked what comes next. In 1882, Nietzsche published The Gay Science. In section 125, a madman runs into the marketplace carrying a lantern in broad daylight. He shouts, "I seek God, I seek God." The crowd laughs at him. The madman cries out, "Where is God? I will tell you. We have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How were we able to drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon?" And here's the part that most people miss. Nietzsche was not celebrating. He was not doing a victory dance. The madman is terrified. He says, "Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must not we ourselves become gods simply to be worthy of it?" Nietzsche saw what was coming. Without God, there is no external source of meaning, no divine plan, no cosmic purpose. This is nihilism. And Nietzsche predicted it would define the next 2 centuries. He was right. The Übermensch is the person who creates their own values, not the values of their parents, not the values of their society, not the values of their religion, their own. Self-legislated, self-chosen, self-created. This is the logical conclusion of everything we have discussed in this series, from Stoicism to Camus to Sartre to de Beauvoir. They all pointed toward this. If there is no external source of meaning, then you must become the source. But here is what every other Nietzsche summary leaves out. Becoming the Übermensch is not a destination. It is a process. Nietzsche called it self-overcoming. You are not born an Übermensch. You become one by constantly overcoming the version of yourself that you were yesterday. Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "Man is a rope tied between beast and Übermensch, a rope over an abyss. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end. You are not meant to arrive. You are meant to cross." So what drives us? Nietzsche's answer, the will to power. Not power over others. That is the misunderstanding. Power over yourself. The drive to grow, to overcome, to become more than you are. Every living thing, Nietzsche argued, seeks to expand its power, not to dominate, to grow. A tree does not want to dominate other trees. It wants to reach higher. It wants to spread its branches further. That is the will to power. And here's the uncomfortable part. Nietzsche believed that suffering is not an obstacle to growth. Suffering is the mechanism of growth. What does not kill me makes me stronger. The phrase is so famous it has become a cliché. But Nietzsche meant it literally, without resistance, without struggle, without the thing that almost breaks you. You do not grow. This makes Nietzsche radically different from the self-help industry. He does not tell you to avoid pain. He tells you to use it. Pain is not a bug in the system. Pain is the system. Stop. Everything I have told you, God is dead, the Übermensch, the will to power, is in the standard videos. You can find it anywhere. What comes next is why Nietzsche matters for your actual life, right now, today. Nietzsche's most personal idea, the one he called his formula for human greatness, is Amor Fati, love of fate, not acceptance of fate, not resignation to fate. Love, active, joyful, embracing love. He wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati. That one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely to bear what is necessary, but to love it. This is not toxic positivity. This is not pretending everything is fine. Amor Fati is the hardest thing a human being can do. It means looking at everything that has ever happened to you, every failure, every loss, every shame, every trauma, and saying, I would not change any of it, because it made me who I am. And here's the test. Nietzsche called it the eternal recurrence. Imagine a demon comes to you in your loneliest moment and says, you will live this life exactly as you have lived it, every pain, every pleasure, every triumph, every failure, again and again for eternity. Would you curse the demon, or would you say, you are a god, and I have never heard anything more divine? Let me bring this to today. You scroll through your phone, you see everyone else's highlight reel, and you think, my life is not enough. Nietzsche would say, the problem is not your life. The problem is that you have not learned to love it. Our culture tells you to optimize your life, fix your flaws, become a better version of yourself. Nietzsche would say, you are missing the point. The goal is not to fix yourself. The goal is to love the version of yourself that exists right now, flaws, failures, and all, while also striving to overcome it. This is the paradox at the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy. You must love your life exactly as it is, and you must constantly strive to make it more than it is. Amor Fati and self-overcoming. Acceptance and ambition. At the same time. Forever. Nietzsche knew this was hard. He called himself the last philosopher, the last one who would try to answer these questions honestly. After him, he predicted, would come the age of the last man. People who want nothing more than comfort, no striving, no risk, no greatness, just warmth, just safety, just entertainment. Look around. He was right. The last man is us. Nietzsche does not offer comfort. He offers something better. He offers the chance to become who you really are, not who you were told to be. Becoming who you really are is the hardest thing a person can do. It is also the only thing worth doing. 3 practices. 1. The Amor Fati moment. Today, when something goes wrong, a delay, a disappointment, a failure, pause. Instead of wishing it were different, say, this is part of my story. I would not change it. 2. The self-overcoming check. Ask yourself, what is one thing I have been avoiding because it is hard? Not because it is impossible, because it is hard. Do that thing, not for the result, for the growth. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, a man who discovered exactly what happens when Nietzsche's questions meet the worst reality imaginable. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and his answer will change how you see everything we have discussed in this series. That is next time on Mindscape Philosophy. Subscribe so you do not miss it. This is Mindscape Philosophy, tomorrow morning. One choice, one moment of self-overcoming. See you next week.